Hey guys, welcome to VCYA Online. We're so glad that you could tune in with us tonight. If you're new with us, have any questions, or simply want to connect, text VCYA info to 97000 and one of our team members will be glad to get back to you as soon as possible. And with that being said, make sure to grab your Bible, your favorite blanket, and maybe even a snack or two, and prepare your hearts for worship and the Word.
Bring it all to peace. The storm surrounding me, let it break at your name and still. Call the sea to still, the rage in me to still every wave at your name. Jesus, Jesus, you make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus, silence fear. Jesus, Jesus, you make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus, oh, and breathe. Call these lungs to live, and call these lungs to sing once again. I will praise, sing Jesus, Jesus.
How's it going, VCYA? It's Pastor Matt here. I know that just due to the circumstances, due to what's going on all around us, we cannot meet, and we're all bummed about that. But guess what? We can still meet right here, right now, live on whatever device that you're tuning in on. That's what we can do, and that's how we're going to do it for however long we need to do that. And that's what I love about the space and the time that we live in, that we can still meet, that we can still hang, that we can still do all the things that we need to do to be the church, because the church is not a building. We know that the church is you, the church is me, the church is all of us together as a community, striving to be better, striving to know Christ more, and striving to let the gospel be heard by all people. And who knows more than we do that people need hope in a time like we live right now. So without further ado, I'm just going to get right into why we're here, why I'm talking, what we're doing. Man, usually we would be meeting for our monthly service right now, but we can't do that. So I think that with the worship, with the word, we can still come together, we can still meet, we can still gather, we can still hear what God is trying to say to us in this time and in this place. And I can't help but think about the time that we live, about what's going on around us, about the environment that we find ourselves in today. And when I was thinking about all of this, I couldn't help but think of greenhouses. I don't know if you've ever thought about greenhouses like I have before. I might just be weird like that, but that's just what I was thinking about. And if you grew up in any kind of country little town like I did, then everybody and their mother had a greenhouse in their backyard. Our schools had greenhouses for our ag classes, all this different stuff. And I can remember just thinking, man, these are some amazing places. Like, there's just stuff growing everywhere. It's like stuff is so lively. So I did a little research on why greenhouses are so effective in what they do. And there's two main effects of greenhouses that are beneficial to the planting and growing process. And those things are that they trap heat and light. They trap heat and they trap light. You see, in the natural environment in which plants grow, they're subject to heat and light, which help them to grow, but they're also subject to everything else that goes on around them. They're subject to cold weather. They're subject to rain and no rain. They're subject to dark. They're subject to light. They're subject to animals. They're subject to anything that comes into contact with them. But when plants are put into an environment in which only the good is trapped, then everything else has no effect on them. And that's why greenhouses are so effective in what they do, and that's why they've been so beneficial even to the agricultural processes in which we know. Because greenhouses create the perfect environment to grow. And I can't help but think, like, not telling us to move into greenhouses, don't get me wrong, because I don't want to live in a greenhouse. But I think our environment always has an effect on the way that we grow. And I can't help but think of this passage in Matthew where Jesus is teaching, and I just want to read it right here. It says, listen, this is Jesus speaking. He's speaking of a parable. He says, listen, a farmer went out to sow his seed. As he was scattering the seed, some fell along the path, and the birds came and ate it up. Some fell on rocky places where it had not much soil. It sprang up quickly because the soil was shallow, but when the sun came up, the plants were scorched, and they withered because they had no root. Other seed fell among the thorns, which grew up and choked the plants, so that they did not bear grain. Still other seed fell on good soil. It came up, grew, and produced a crop, some multiplying 30, some 60, and some 100 times. You see, there are times where we find ourselves, like right now, that are not normal. The times that we find ourselves in are not normal. We can't meet in the physical building of the church. We can't gather in groups larger than 10 people. Like, these are not normal times for our society. You can ask anybody of any age. This is kind of unprecedented to what we know. But maybe not normal is exactly what we need. You see, I love the places that Jesus uses that are the not so good places, because they're very normal places. He says some seed fell along the path. A path would have been very normal for somebody hearing this, but it says when it fell along the path, the birds came up and ate it. And I can't help but think, when I think of a path and birds, we're not walking down paths and seeing birds eat seeds regularly. I don't think but I think that we can think about it in this way. Man, so many times we're on our own destination, we're on our own route, and maybe the people on it are what cause us from receiving what God is trying to say, or what causes us from receiving all of these things that God has in store. Maybe we're so caught up on the way in which we're walking, on the destination that we have planned, on all these dreams and hopes that we have, that we're missing the very dreams and hopes that God has for us. And maybe the people around us are like the birds that Jesus is speaking of, and he's saying, if only you would get away from these things, you would receive what I'm trying to say. And then he speaks of these rocky places. Man, rocks are pretty normal. We see rocks everywhere. But he talks about these rocky places in which they did not have much soil, but it sprang up quickly because the soil was shallow. But when the sun came up, the plants were scorched and they withered because they had no root. Man, I think about the rocky places in our lives as those hard to reach areas, as those places that we've kind of given to God, but we're still holding back, and we're saying, God, do something great in my life. God, do something magnificent. Or maybe we have a God moment in a service, or maybe we have a great conversation, or maybe we have this experience with God, but we haven't fully sacrificed ourselves over to Jesus. And he's saying, only if you could see that, if you would give me all of you, you would see the full potential of what I have for you. Man, it's those rocky places, it's those hard to reach areas, it's those off limits spaces that we're keeping back from God, that he's saying, if only you could give me those things, those times, those places, those people, those dreams, those hopes that I have for you, man, look what your life could be. And then there's the thorns. Man, the thorns to me are the most dangerous place to be, because the thorns are the places that you're saying, God, you're not allowed here. God, I can't have you here. God, I will never give you that. God, I will never give you my life. God, I can't. God, it's too big. God, I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go. But it said that the thorns grew up around and choked the plants, and they could not bear grain. But what I'm coming to tell you today is that God is greater than any thorn. He's greater than anything, any obstacle, any past situation, any current circumstance, any virus that's currently taking over the world. He's bigger than all of these things, and he's bigger than anything you might face throughout your entire life. He's already claimed the victory, and he wants those places to be for him. He wants those places to be an environment in which you can grow. So there's the path and the birds, there's the rocky places, there's the thorns, and all these places keep us from seeing the full potential that God has for us. But then Jesus mentions the good soil. And this is what I love, because they didn't have the luxury of the greenhouse back in the day. They didn't have the luxury of the science that we know of how they trap the heat and the light, and they're actually used to produce larger plants in the future, because you can transplant plants and all this other stuff and all this great stuff that we get to see. But we have that knowledge. But I think more than just the agricultural purposes, we can create in ourselves a greenhouse. We can create in ourselves a place that is perfect for God to grow in us. We can create an environment all around us that just says, God, I don't care what's going on. God, I don't have it all figured out, but I'm going to set myself up to grow. So this is what I'm going to leave you with today. Man, let the light of the Lord shine deep within your soul. Let the word saturate your heart. Let everything that is going on around you, man, take this time where you might be taken away from some social events, man, from maybe your everyday schedule. Maybe you don't have as many work hours as you might have had throughout the week. Man, maybe, I don't know, maybe you've just locked in a room somewhere man, take this time to create in yourself a greenhouse for God. Let God do a mighty work in your life, and don't look back at this time in 2020 and say, man, I wish I would have, or man, I wish I could have, or I wish I should have, but say, you know what, I did, and God did, and look where I'm at now. Look what God did in my life through the environment that I created so that I can see the potential that God sees in me. Hey, just one last word of encouragement. We're believing for you. We're believing in you. We believe that God has all things under control. He's going to do a mighty work in your life, in your family's life, in our world, in our community. God has everything under control. Nothing takes him by surprise. And I just want to leave you with this. Take this time to just grow closer. Take this time to care for your friends, for your loved ones. Take this time to care for yourself, and take this time to grow in God. So let's pray together. God, I thank you for this time that we have. God, I thank you for technology and for spaces in which we can meet and we can gather. God, I thank you for everything, God, that you're going to do, God, in us and through us, God, in this time, God, and in the future. God, we know that you have everything under control, God, and that you're going to do mighty things in us. God, we ask and pray these things in your holy and awesome name. Amen. God bless you guys.
Man, what a great word from Pastor Matt. You know, even though things may not seem normal in our world right now, we can use this time of change to let God change us. So stay encouraged, stay safe, and we hope you guys have a great week.